The leaves have mostly fallen from the trees, the lakes are beginning to ice over, and in some areas, fresh snow blankets the ground. Sarah Strommen, Commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources, joins me to talk about the health of the state's fish and game. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The firearm deer season opens this weekend. How is the health of our deer population?
Generally, the health of the population is quite well. Hunters will find robust deer populations in many parts of the state, particularly in central Minnesota, and that means more hunting opportunities for folks. And I think we saw that over MEA weekend. That was our statewide youth hunt. That's the first time we've offered that as a statewide opportunity, and 5,700 kids successfully harvested deer. So that was a good result, and I think a really important reminder that this is a family-friendly activity, and having some dedicated time for kids to learn how to hunt is a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, I read about the success of that. One thing that hunters will face in some parts of the state is regulations regarding chronic wasting disease. What do hunters need to know about that?
That's a great question. I think the main health concern related to the deer population is chronic wasting disease. I think the important thing to remember is we're still at an incredibly low infection rate. We've tested since 2002 7,200 deer. We have 54 positives. It's really localized in southeast Minnesota. We have special regulations in north central Minnesota in the Crow Wing County vicinity, where we found a wild deer positive for CWD. And then we're still doing surveillance in central Minnesota, where we had a positive deer in a farm, a captive situation. So there are special regulations, particularly in the southeast and in the Crow Wing County, that north central area, where hunters need to get their deer tested. So they need to submit samples. All of that information is on our website, and that is the best place to go to find out where you can take your deer to get sampled, what the requirements are, and also a place to find your results. You know, and the results that we're seeing across those areas. We keep that up to date as soon as we get results back. So it's a good place for people to get information.
And we'll put that link up after this segment. Let's turn to hunting other things. Governor Walz was successful in getting a pheasant. The lieutenant governor hunted for pheasant for her first time at the pheasant hunting opener not too long ago. But we experienced a harsh winter, wet spring, wet fall. How are the populations of pheasant and the many other small game populations that people can hunt this time of year?
We had a great pheasant opener in Austin. The governor, of course, was very proud of his bird, and the lieutenant governor participated in a mentored hunt for women, and that was a fantastic experience. You know, pheasant populations are most dictated by weather and habitat. And I say we like to talk about weather a lot in Minnesota, but we know we don't control it. So the piece we can control is the habitat. And so that's where we are focused on building our pheasant populations, by ensuring that we are acquiring habitat in strategic areas and that we are managing that habitat in a way that is conducive for pheasants. As far as other small game species that people are out hunting, I know in my household we found a couple of grouse and some woodcock, but I'm hearing good reports on those, and so I think hunters are having a good fall.
Excellent. This week the DNR rejected a petition from an environmental group that asked the department to ban lead fishing tackle and ammunition statewide due to the lead poisoning that makes its way into loons, eagles, and other wildlife. Is this something that should be addressed by the Department of Natural Resources, or should this question go to the legislature?
We looked at that petition really carefully. We looked at the many years of data and information we had. We looked at the information we had about public sentiment on this issue. We looked at what other states have done, and ultimately in this, one of our conclusions was this is a really broad request for a ban across all tackle, all ammunition, and in other states that has been done through legislative action. Our rulemaking here in Minnesota for the Department of Natural Resources, when it comes to methods of take, typically is limited to a specific geographic area or a specific species. So this is much broader than typical rulemaking that we do. And so that's part of what led us to a conclusion that this needs a broader conversation, probably something that the legislature needs to take up. And we're excited to be part of that conversation as well. I mean, clearly there are environmental impacts and there are human health impacts of lead. We're not denying that, but we think it needs a broader conversation.
In the last few weeks, zebra mussels or their larvae have been confirmed in at least 5 more lakes in Minnesota. Is this a battle that the state is losing?
That's a great question. I think on the minds of a lot of people, it's a sentiment I hear. But obviously, these new discoveries are disappointing. But I think it's also important to put it in perspective that while many of our large lakes that get a lot of use, and so the names we recognize now have zebra mussels, in total, only about 3% of our water bodies in Minnesota are infected with zebra mussels. And so this is something that is very much still, there is space to work on control. And I think even with those lakes that are infested, Minnesotans haven't given up. The lake lovers have not given up. And so this really is still an effort to work in partnership with lake associations, in partnership with local governments, working with the Aquatic Invasive Species Center at the University of Minnesota to make sure that we are doing all the education and outreach that we can do to make sure that people are taking care of their boats when they take them out of the access, limiting the spread, and also learning as much as we can about how the mussels spread and if there's something we can do to control them in the future.
But maybe not quite as dire as sometimes we think it is, because we keep seeing all of these headlines about this lake and this lake, but it's really only 3%.
It is, and that's surprising. And again, part of it, we have to remember that many of our large lakes are infested. So, what we're talking about in that is we have a lot of lakes in Minnesota and we have a lot of small lakes. But I think it shows that, this isn't lost, that it's still really important to seize the opportunities that we have and do everything that we can do in an aggressive manner to halt the spread.
Finally, before we go, applications just opened for the No Child Left Inside grants. These are open to public entities and nonprofit organizations who serve youth. What do people need to know about this?
Well, this is a really exciting program aimed at getting kids outdoors and creating opportunities for all kids in Minnesota to get outdoors. And, we need to do that through partnerships. And I think what people should know is this program it's new, created by the legislature. It has been met with resounding embracing and success. And so we opened up the first round of applications, and within hours we were oversubscribed. So we actually had to stop taking applications. But there will be another round. There will be future rounds and future funding available within what the legislature appropriated us last year. So folks should watch the website. We also have networks that we're putting information out, but the website is a great place to find out when those next rounds open up, because I suspect they will be as popular as this first one.
Well, and getting kids into the outdoors is such a good idea.
Absolutely, and I think what's exciting is, people aren't waiting for the DNR to create all those opportunities. They are figuring out, in their own missions and the work of either nonprofit organizations, whether it's a conservation organization or sometimes a community organization, what they can do to get kids outdoors, because it's really good for kids in their childhood development, in their health and well-being to get outside.
Commissioner Strommen, thank you.
Thank you.